You said something really interesting. I was reading all the notes and all the wisdom that you've shared with us, and I really thank you for taking the time to educate us about this. We talk about it being an open border. My takeaway from what you said is it really isn't an open border. You say the border is controlled, but it's controlled by the cartel on the other side. That it may seem open, but the turnstile, the gatekeepers are really the cartels on the other side, that they're the ones controlling the border. Talk about that some.
You're absolutely right. The cartel is the one who controls what comes across the border. Anything that comes across illicitly and some of the stuff that comes across legally is controlled by the cartel. And the cartel gets their cut of everything that is coming across. We've actually come across people that have been tortured as a result of attempting to cross the border without permission of the cartel or without paying them, because the cartel is pretty ruthless, but they're out to make money. We've seen in the past where they've killed numerous people for trying to cross the border without paying the cartels. And so they have basically what equates to an army on the other side of the Rio Grande, and they have many people on this side of the Rio Grande that helped them to enforce the rules that the cartel has put in place, because the Mexican government is by no means in control of most of Mexico. The cartels actually run it, because the cartels are the ones not only enforcing the laws that they put in place, they're the ones that are providing electricity and drinking water and streetlights and paving the roads. So that's not the Mexican government doing that. And through that process, they have gained absolute control of most of the border regions that, that Mexico has facing the United States. And so they control that because they're extremely greedy and they want all of the money they can get. According to last time I sat down and my wife and I had dinner with Senator Cruz, they had estimated, I believe it was 2022 or 23, the cartels made about $13 billion just off of slave trade. That's the people they're bringing in this country. That didn't include their drugs and the other things that they're involved in. So it's a lot of money, and they're pretty ruthless at it.
It's mind-boggling to think about. I met with Senator Cruz in his office in Washington, D.C. just a few days ago, and he was talking about the fact that the cartels seem to substantially outgun the Mexican military, that they're the ones with the firepower, they're the ones with the manpower, and you're telling me you agree that they're actually running the country, and certainly in the border zones, they're the ones in control. Is there corruption, or are they just outgunning and outmanning the military?
It's a combination. The Mexican government and the cartels work hand in hand. They're basically intertwined. You have cartel people that are in the government. You have government people who are on the take down there that are working with them. But the first thing, if you want to understand how it functions in Mexico, you have to go back and look. The Mexican government has what they call a plaza system. And what that system is the Mexican government will carve out a piece of geographic territory, and they will lease it to organized crime for a flat rate every month. And for that flat rate, you may be able to, move X number of pounds of marijuana, X number of kilos of cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and a certain number of people to be smuggled in the United States. Anything above and beyond that, you have to pay a tax to the Mexican government on. And by Mexican government, I don't mean the government serving the people. I mean to the people in the government. And the Mexican government has done this for a long time. You go all the way back to Pablo Acosta out in Oinagua back in the 70s and 80s. He was paying the Mexican government $100,000 a month back then in order to lease that plaza of Oinagua from the government. And of course, the Mexican government eventually came in and killed him because he did not want to deal with the Colombians, and somebody else offered them $1 million a month for the same plaza. So the government knocked off Pablo Acosta in order to get more money out of the plaza. And so when you realize that this is how government functions in Mexico, it tells you everything you need to know about what we're dealing with on the other side of the border.
Okay, now wait a minute. Let me be sure that I've got this right. You're saying that obviously this isn't a policy that you can go look up in the government. This is off the books, but there are individuals, like I guess maybe we would call them the Minister of the Interior or whatever, but there are people in the government that have a side hustle. They've got their real government job, things that they do above board, but then there are people in the government that have this plaza system. They are leasing out areas of Mexican territory where these cartels pay a fee and they can operate with impunity within that area to move a certain volume of people or drugs, and they get no hassle from the government. They're leasing that area, and it keeps all the other cartels away, and it keeps the government away.
Yeah, they're paying the convenience fee to be able to conduct their illicit operations within that geographic territory to those members of the government. That's exactly what it is.
Okay, and are they all around the border?
No, they stretch out throughout the country of Mexico. And the price is going to depend on, number one, how big is your organization? How big is the geography you want? And how valuable is the territory for either cultivating, safeguarding, or getting your product into the United States of America? Probably not going to pay as much for Onagua as you are for Juarez, because you've got much more logistical challenge from Onagua to get your property or your product in the United States than if you're in Juarez or just south of Nogales or something like that.
Okay, so that's prime real estate right along the border there. So
Well, yeah,
they don't,
you pay more money for better real estate, obviously.
yeah, and so they don't worry about the Mexican military or police force coming in there and bother them. They don't have to hide. They can just have things out in the open there.
Well, they can until somebody else comes along and offers the Mexican government or officials more money for that same territory, or moves in and has the power and the desire to take it over. Then they have to start worrying, because it's all about, like I said, it's all about money. When you go back to Pablo Acosta, the investigative reporters who looked into Pablo Acosta say that he would take $100,000 a month to the federal radio station in Onagua, and a cut went all the way up to the president of Mexico at that point in time. So you've got a lot of mouths to feed. You've got a lot of variables going on. And so there is no real stability for the most part, because they're constantly competing with each other. They're constantly trying to outbid each other, or they're trying to kill each other in order to get the upper hand.
So how much money are we talking about here? I've been to Eagle Pass. I've been to a lot of areas around the border there. Some of these areas go for miles. I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles along there. Will one cartel control all of that? A long stretch of the river? Will somebody have 20, 30, 40 miles of it, or is it chopped up?
It's chopped up, and it varies depending on where you're at and who has access to certain areas, who's either paid for it or has enough muscle in order to come in and be able to obtain it. So it varies. The size of that contact with the border varies based off of the organization and how the government has it laid out, and how much your neighbors are willing to try to fight and take it from you.
Yeah, and you say somebody was paying 100,000 a month, then Colombians come in and say, we'll give you 1 million. So they need to get rid of the guy they made a deal with for 100, so they just go take him out.
It's all about money.
Wow. So are these government officials that are on the take like this? I know there's a lot of people that have got their hands in the till, but they must be making a lot of money. Are they living extravagant lifestyles down there?
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't know how they're living, but I don't care how much money they're making. Is it worth selling your soul to the devil, so to speak? I would think that for all of the luxury they could buy, they probably still can't buy a good night's sleep because of the people they're dealing with. You never know who's going to turn on who.
I would think that it's such a dog-eat-dog system that you're describing. You just wonder, is it going to be tomorrow or the next day? It seemed like it's when, not if, somebody's going to step on you to get to the next level. I don't know how in the world they ever survive in that situation.
That's the nature of the business, I guess. If you want to get in bed with them, you're going to have to deal with those consequences. But the problem is, human nature. Most people have a short memory and are greedy and Once they're willing to take a little bit, then they're owned. Because once the cartel has you in their pocket, there's no getting out without their permission. And so it's just the nature of the business down there.
How much of this is bleeding across the border in terms of corruption on the American side?
I guarantee you it's happening. We have discussions with some of our friends along the border, and it's a problem that law enforcement along the border faces on a regular basis. But down there, it's when you get on the Texas side, you have a couple different things, and I will tell you that when we first started working closely with folks from the border, we were really distrustful of some of the law enforcement. Uh, you have to know who to trust and who you can't. But I will tell you that one of the things that really opened my eyes was we were having a meeting in Kingsville, and one of the officers from the Rio Grande Valley came up and said, "Hey, listen, I know you don't trust us. I understand." They said, "But let me explain to you how it works where we're at." The guy tells me, "I work for a small police department." He said, "I have a cartel person assigned to follow me every day when I'm working, so they know what I'm doing. I have one that's assigned to follow me every day when I'm off, so they know where I go. They know where my family is. They know where my kids go to school." And he said, "While you may think that we're all corrupt," he said, "look at it this way. Imagine yourself walking out of your house, getting ready to go to work, and your patrol car is in the driveway. And when you go to get in your patrol car, there's a Nilla envelope underneath the windshield wiper." He said, "In that Nilla envelope may be a picture of your daughter at the playground at the elementary school. And all it says is, 'Don't work Highway 281 between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. today.'" And he said, "That's it." He says, "Do you think I'm going to go work Highway 281 between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. today?" I said, "No, I wouldn't think so." He says, "No." And he goes, "The problem is, who do I tell?" He says, "Because a lot of times the cartel has people embedded within our law enforcement agencies down here. And so I can't go tell my supervisors because if it gets out, then my family's in danger." And he says, so that's kind of the life that those poor people are living down in the valley and along in the border towns is the vast intimidation. Now, are there cases of bribery? We've seen it. We have counties down there where the sheriffs have gone to federal prison, their family members have gone to federal prison. They've been working with the cartels. They have helped the cartels. We've seen it much farther north than the border where law enforcement has helped them because they do offer money sometimes. But it's one of those things that when you get down the border has become more like Mexico in many ways than it has the United States. And I feel sorry for those folks because there's a lot of good people down there who are living in fear and are trying to do the best. And to me, those guys are heroes because they're right there on the front line. It would be easy to criticize them, you know, when you're a long ways off. But when you look at these folks and their families are being threatened, and all they're being told is not to be at a particular place at a particular time, really can't blame them for not being there. I mean, if it was your family, would you go out and work the highway after they gave you a picture of your kid on playground at school?
I think I'd be looking for someplace I could farm in Nebraska or something. It just seems like that's a very dangerous place to be.